Go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. Daily Huddle family. Thank you for joining us today on this beautiful January Monday.
Good morning. Good morning. Good to be here. Feels good. We've had some nice weather in Charleston, and we're getting cold again. A whopping 50 degrees outside. Not really cold for a lot of people.
It's freezing down here.
So, before we get started this morning, we've got some great things to talk about. They're not so fun, but they're fun also. We talk about credit cards and how not to be ruled by your credit card debt. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So, but before we get started, all the stereotypical jokes, I guess I can say with my wife sitting right here, but my wife uses her credit card too much. Not really, but I recommended she start using some cash, but she's afraid of change.
I think Zach needs some joke lessons.
Too many of them take.
Well, good morning, Daily Huddle. Thanks for joining us on this beautiful Monday. I hope it's as pretty where you are as it is where we are, because it's gorgeous today.
It is. And so let's start that out with a couple of questions. I know I want to hear from Chase this morning. Chase, what time is it and what are you grateful for today?
Grand day, my good people. The time is completely now. I can't get by that if I wanted to. And I'm grateful for the Oteys. I love you guys so much. I really do. I don't have any problem saying that.
You're the best tour guide of NYC. We love you too.
Absolutely.
We want to come and spend some more time up there with you.
The Kevin Bacon of the Daily Huddle, as we discovered. the glue that keeps us together.
I'm coming to your place too. I'm coming out to where you are. I want to see where the Otis got all happy like that. Shoot.
Come on down. Come on down. Rashida, where are you and who will you hug today?
Good morning and great rising, my Daily Huddle family. Where I am, I'm up in the pocket, but I'm right here though. I'm right here in the cold, bristly weather of 25 degrees, but I just loved it. A lot of snow. And who I'm going to hug today?
January day.
I know I'm going to hug my 3-month-old grandson that I'm babysitting at this minute. Thank goodness he's quiet that I can speak. Thank you.
Amazing. It's good to hear your voice. Kimberly.
Hey, same here, guys.
How are you this morning?
I'm amazing. I'm exactly how I say I am. And I think that's an important lesson to take throughout our day and throughout our lives, is our words define our actions and our thoughts and our feelings. And so own it. Say how you feel and mean how you say it. And if you don't feel good, pretend, right? Trick yourself. But I'm amazing.
You are.
Mostly because you're beside me.
Yeah. Well, I do what I can. Mm-hmm. Well, guys, let's talk a little bit this morning about credit cards. Let's talk about, we'll talk about what's good about them, what's bad about them, how to use them properly, all those kind of things as we go through this brief time this morning. But the main thing we want you to do is become educated, if you're not already, about how they work. It's not just, they give you the ability to buy something that you can't pay cash for, or give you the ability to earn a bunch of points or whatever. One of the reasons that all the big buildings in the towns that you see in Atlanta and Charleston and New York City have bank names on them is because they understand how money works. They understand compound interest. And that's one of the pieces that a lot of consumers miss when they go in and they buy a television at Best Buy for $25 a month or whatever the ridiculous number is on the screen, on the shelf below it. You very rarely, when you go into retail establishments anymore, will you see the actual full price of an item. It's going to tell you how much you can pay for it monthly, especially on larger purchases, which they do that specifically for a reason, and that is because they want you to believe you can afford it. Well, before we get started on affording things, what does that mean? I think that we've come to change our thought process about affording it from being able to buy the item, whether it's the car, whether it's a TV, whatever it is, outright, to being able to afford its monthly payment. And so, and there's some good and bad in that, right? I believe in borrowing money for certain things. There's difference in good debt and bad debt. Unfortunately, credit cards are just bad debt. There are 0%. There are things that you can do if you have control of your finances and you make good choices and manage those. 0% paid off in time, all those kind of things. But let's talk about real quickly the rule of 72. And it talks about compound interest. Albert Einstein called the rule of 72 the eighth wonder of the world. And I'm just going to share a screen real quickly with you so you can see this. And then to give you kind of this is talking about the rule of 72 when it pertains to money that you have in savings or in investments.
So explain that first and then.
So you take the number 72 and you divide it by the rate of return that you're getting. So, for example, if you go out and go to the bank right now, some of them are paying at 4% on certificates of deposit even. If I put $10,000 in a CD at 4% when I'm 29, that's the red column there in the middle. I've got 10,000 at 29. It's going to take how many years for my money to double, right? 4 goes into 72. You see how the math works. So as it goes up, so that's going to take 18 years to double. And then at 47, I'll have 20. And by the time I'm retirement age, at age 65, I'll be able to retire off of $40,000, right? So we teach people that you have to find a balance between safety and being conservative in your investments and chasing after rates of return. But this shows you what can happen with that same $10,000 at 8% and at 12%. Why do I show you this now when we're talking about credit cards? Because the rule of 72 is always working. If you have money in investments, it's working for you, right? At whatever pace. But if you have money borrowed, it's working against you. And if you think about now, the average credit card interest rate across our country is high 20s, 28, 27, 28%. Look at the bank's money and what they're making off that money they've invested with you and what you're paying them for that. That means that their money doubles every 3 to 4 years based on the rule of 72. So that's what I wanted you to see. And that's why it's so hard, if not impossible, to pay off and get out of credit card debt by paying your minimum payments only. So you need to understand how that's working and how much money is going towards, you can stop that share, how much money is going towards paying down that debt versus how much money is actually just going to the banks. It's just going away. So financing things can be very, very expensive. Especially in today's interest rate market, when you mortgages, everything. So many conversations to be had there, understanding how that works. So there are several pieces to avoiding the credit card trap. Number one is don't get into it in the first place. We talk about emergency funds. A lot of times we justify spending money on a credit card, or we have to spend money on a credit card if the car breaks down and we can't pay for the repair out of pocket, right? So have 3 to 6 months of your income saved in a liquid emergency fund.
I think for a lot of people that feels really daunting, right? Like, how is it possible? I've got all of this credit card debt. I can't pay it off. How am I going to save money in an emergency fund? How am I ever going to move forward in my life, right? We talk to clients all of the time, especially this time of year. We just finished with Christmas, might have spent a little too much on our credit cards, trying to make sure that everything was perfect for everyone. And now it's January. We've got New Year's resolutions. We want to make changes. We want to make things better. And it's a great time of year. People are filing their tax returns. They're fixing to get some money back. But how do we move forward in a positive direction? How do we make those changes? Especially when it feels like it's just this trap, right? This sand pit that you just can't dig out of. And I think that there are a lot of ways. Number one is understanding, like Zach was talking about, the rule of 72. How does it work? Does it work for you? Does it work against you? And just understanding what that looks like. But one way to make a change is to change your habits, right? We talk about that quite a bit. Again, it's January, New Year's resolutions. I'm reading, you guys know, I've been reading for, feels like forever, probably has been forever. But I haven't quit. That's important, right? But Atomic Habits. And it's a great book. But one of the the habits that I'm on is, I think it's habit number 3 or something like that. But it's talking about make it easy. If I want to change my habit, I have to make it easy. So if my habit is to use my credit card everywhere, every time I go somewhere, and I use my credit card, and it just keeps snowballing, even if I pay it down, it goes high again. How do I change that habit? Well, the easiest way to do that is to take your credit card out of your wallet. Remove it as an option. Remove it as a payment method on your computer screens, right? Remove it as that option. And if you have to have something in your wallet just in case, then just keep one of them instead of 5 of them there for that little emergency that you might need it. So I think that would be step 1 if you want to really get out of debt, is remove that, and creating that new habit is making it easy, right? Removing that from your card. Some people, I remember when we first got started in this world, and 100% truth here, we totally at multiple times in our lives drowned in credit card debt. And thankfully we're good, and we've learned from our lessons, but we didn't know, right? When we were young and we were teachers and we needed the month to be shorter, we used our credit cards. And so as we were learning about credit and we were learning about money, one of the things that we heard was, freeze it in, remember that?
Yeah,
Freeze
freeze it
it in a Ziploc bag, right? Like pour water in a Ziploc bag, put your credit card in there, freeze it in the freezer. So if you wanted it, you could get to it, but it was a lot harder to get to than, just sticking a drawer.
I think that was before we had them saved in our Amazon accounts and all that kind of stuff. Can't really freeze that one in the freezer.
Probably so, but
Same
that's
concept.
but that's one of the things I would tell you guys is to create new habits. Remove that as an everyday option. If it's an emergency, then so be it. If it is one credit card, so be it. But so many of us have so many credit cards, and we play that game that it gets hard to keep up with, right? One of the other things I want to talk to you guys about. You want to say anything about that before I move forward?
No, I mean, I definitely think that, and there's so many different pieces of advice. There's so many different people out on social media that are talking about how you should use credit cards for points and pay them off every month, and all those things are great. And identify one that you can use so that all your points go in one direction. There's safety measures for credit cards that are better than debit cards. A lot of times you get immediate. If somebody does steal your card number, you get immediate credit back from a credit card. And if you go through your bank with your debit card, it might be out of your account for a while. So there are good reasons to use that credit card. Again, it's just manage it, right? It's just make sure that you.
And I think that's probably the biggest issue. And that's what we're talking about today is until you can manage your credit cards, don't chase the points. Don't chase the free trips. Don't chase the cashback rewards, right? Let's have a really good habit on managing our credit, managing our credit cards before we chase those things. And if that's who you are, and you can do that. I spoke with a really good friend of mine the other day, and every trip she takes is free because she does it through points and switches them from here to here. And that's all great and everything, but she can manage her credit cards. One of the ways that I want you guys to start focusing on paying your credit cards, and I'm sure you've heard the snowball method or the avalanche method quite a bit through different podcasts and different conversations that you've had with financial people. But that's one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make when I sit down with them. I always ask them, everything, right? A whole snapshot. And on the liabilities section, I'm like, well, tell me about your credit cards. What do you owe? What's your minimum payment? And what are you actually paying? And I ask them that for every single card because I want to see. And most people, their minimum payment might be $25 and they're paying $75. And they're doing that for 5 cards. So to me, there it's kind of like a madness, right? It's that rat running on a wheel. It's never actually going to have the effect that you want it to have because you're not paying down enough. So instead of overpaying 5 cards, take all of those overpayments and pay it just to one. And I know for most people it's counterintuitive because you want to see all those balances go down. And if I'm just paying the minimum payment, I'm not really doing anything. But paying it all to one is really going to accelerate that debt payoff, which is huge and it's important. And it feels good when you can check that box so you can say that one's gone, right? And if you're paying And just in case you guys don't know, but as you're doing that, when you're overpaying that one, let's say you're overpaying it by the $100 extra that you were paying to the other 3 or 4 or 5 credit cards, right? So you're overpaying that one by 100. So let's say you're paying $125 to that credit card, minimums to everything else. When that's gone, now you take that $125 and you roll it into the next minimum payment. So if that minimum payment was 25, now you're paying 150. And you literally do that every single time until your debt is gone. It does take discipline, but so does everything else in life, right? But I think it's important to know that. I think it's important not to chase I want to pay off my credit cards and overpay all of them by $25 a month and never really make any substantial headway.
Yeah, and the nice thing about this now with most of the credit card you know, websites and their back offices you can use, all this can be automated. You can literally say, I want to pay on this date this much, and you know, that's another thing I'm sure that.
Not yet.
What's that?
Oh, okay.
I was just saying about the minimum payment. I figured you're going to go into that in a minute, but that's another thing. Make it simple, like Kimberly said. That habit, make it easy. Make a decision. Especially if you're on a salary and you get paid the same thing, whether it's once a month or twice a month, and you know when that's coming in. Set it up where it pays that immediately after that deposit, and you never have to worry about missing it, and it will systematically happen as it pays that one down. You just have to go in and change it over once one's paid off. You have to go change that, like Kimberly said, roll that up to the next
minimum
one.
payments on auto pay.
Yeah, I mean, in that same note, we recommend everybody put every single credit card on the minimum payment auto pay.
Credit reporting liability.
Yeah. Minimum payment auto pay.
Everything.
You know, that's something that's very simple. I don't recommend that you make the minimum payment only unless you're in one of these snowballs or one of these plans like we're talking about. Certainly would want to pay more than that based on the rule of 72, but at least have that minimum payment on auto pay so you never miss a payment. I can't tell you how many people we've talked to being in the mortgage business for the last several years, and they pull their credit and there's some oops, and it's like a $25 minimum payment that they missed. They got a 30-day late on their credit report, and it dropped it like a rock. Something that simple of just having that automated for you. So remember, automation.
Yeah.
Keep it simple.
So great. One other thing.
Thanks. Validation.
One other thing that I want to teach you guys that I learned. I think you guys remember when we had the credit company on here a few months back, and one of the things that I learned from them, that even being in the mortgage business for the last 21 years, I didn't realize, is obviously we know we have to pay our credit cards on time, right? And we know if we're chasing that credit score for a mortgage or a car loan or something like that, that the least amount of credit card debt we have, the better our score is going to look. And we know all of that. So a lot of times, especially if we use our cards, we try to pay our cards off by the due date, right? And we pay it off by the due date, and then 3 or 4 days later, we go down to the dealership and we have them pull our credit because we know everything's paid off and it should be amazing, and it isn't. And we can't figure out why that's not showing as zero balance and why that's not showing as paid off. I didn't realize this, but I'm going to show you today. This is just a snapshot that I took from Credit Karma earlier. But this is just one of my credit cards, and it shows you everything that you want to know about your credit card, right? But the thing that I want to show you that matters the most to me is on this particular credit card, my due date, which does not show here, so I looked it up, is the 6th of every month. So I have to make sure that my payment is made by the 6th of every month in order for it to report with a zero balance. Okay. Or at least in my mind, and in order for it not to be late and all that kind of stuff, right? So in order not to have that late on my credit and a late fee and all that kind of stuff, I have to make sure that my minimum payment is paid at least by the 6th of every month. I've got that on auto pay, so my minimum payment is paid at least by the 6th of every month. And if I have a balance, then I'll go in and pay it off. But if you look up here in the top left-hand corner of the screen, that red circle, it says that it's reported on January 12th. So this is where people make the biggest mistake, I think, when they're chasing those credit scores, is my payment's due on the 6th of the month. So by the 6th of the month, I have a zero balance because I want my score to report with a zero balance, right? And I'm so excited, and I did it, and I remembered, and everything is done. Zero balance, 6th of the month. The 8th of the month, I start using my credit card again, right? Because I use it for my bills and my gas and my groceries or whatever I use it for. And on the 12th of the month, when it actually reports, it reports a balance again, and I don't actually get that credit score that I was hoping for by paying that off. I hope that makes sense to you guys, and maybe it does, but maybe it doesn't. But if you're looking for that, you have to obviously make your minimum payment by the due date. But if you want that zero balance to report as a zero balance, you've got to keep it a zero balance until your actual report date. And if you have Credit Karma, I know Credit Karma specifically, probably a lot of them do that. But if you have Credit Karma, it shows you the date that it was last reported. So you know how long not to use it before it's reported and you get that bump.
It's funny too, because if we practice what we preach, if you look at her last payment date down there, it was January 11th, right before the reported date. So, I mean, it's one of those things that it shouldn't matter, but it does. You can max it out every month and pay as long as you pay it off before the reported date. And a lot of people that do this with business that have a business card that they use or whatever, they'll do that, use it for business expenditures and then pay it off cyclically. But if you pay it off on the 12th or the 13th every month, you're still going to pay it off before it's late, but it's going to report with that large balance every single month.
Yeah, in that example, I'm sure that I paid my minimum on January 6th, and then January 11th, I was like, oh, I got a balance, and I swiped and paid the rest of it, right? Just so it reported. I left $10 on there, unfortunately, apparently. But anyway, to me, I thought that was very valuable, especially coming from the mortgage industry. I know a lot of people chase those I can't read and talk and type at the same time. Thanks, Robin. Just kidding. We'll talk about that in just a second. I don't even know what I was saying. Do you know what I was saying?
Well, we were moving forward with things, and that's a very, very valid point. A lot of people are worried about lowering limits and things like that, credit that's not used, especially in a shrinking or in a tightening economy like what we're going into right now. Robin just said, he said cards lower his limit based on paying them off on a regular basis. And that could happen. Absolutely. But in this light, it's a good thing, in my opinion, right? If we're trying to manage but having that open credit on your credit score will also drop your credit score as well. So I can't come up with the sense of, we've talked to the people with the credit card company we brought on here, or the credit company that we brought on the Daily Huddle for years, about the common sense of the algorithms. Everything works in favor of the credit card companies, however they put them together, the credit reporting agencies. They're not really designed to see us. They're designed to see our make their bottom line, their risk, all those kind of things look good. And so it's unfair. I don't really see how my credit score should affect my car insurance, but it does. Yeah, Robin.
So what you're telling me then is the whole theme and premise of It's a Wonderful Life is gone. It's all about dollars and cents and corporate profits, and really nobody gives a crap about anybody anymore. And when it comes to money and finances is what I'm seeing. And I'm going through it. I've had 3 cards that were well over $18,000 and $25,000 that had been paid religiously, not used for months, put a few $1,000s for a big purchase, pay it off at the end, $3,500. Sorry, we're lowering your limit to $3,500. Now, I don't know where the algorithm gets that, but we certainly aren't in any financial distress that we couldn't pay it off if we ran it up to $25,000. And in their best interest, I would think allowing me the ability to do that so they could collect interest on that if I didn't pay it off each month would really, cause them to want to keep my limits up high. So there is no rhyme or reason. You're right. There's none whatsoever. And was
that recently, Robin?
Oh yeah, it was like in the last 6 months. Well, I had like a 760 credit score, and I had a $18,000 limit. We had run 12,000 up on it to help my son with something. And when it came to where we were going to have to start paying interest on it, we transferred the balance over to an interest-free card for 20 months, so we could pay it off without paying interest. And the next month I get, hey, $3,500 limit. We're lowering your credit. Wait a minute. Home Depot did it to us. We would use it to buy a big purchase. We would pay it off. I had $18,000 Home Depot limit. It's like $2,000 now. It doesn't seem.
I'll tell you, it is frustrating because number one, you lose that ability, that purchasing ability. It also does lower your credit score because your available credit is less. I don't see that often. The last time that I've seen that was 2008, 2009. Same thing happened to us. We had a huge limit on our credit card, like a huge, like 40,000. That's big. You know, I shouldn't spend $40,000 in just unsecured credit, right? Huge limit. And I remember we went to the gas station one day, swiped it to pay for gas, and it was denied. And we were like, what? Like, why is this denied? Swiped it again, it was denied. Swiped another one, it was denied. And that was, we all know what happened in 2008, 2009. So I think that's a bigger underlying conversation. And I think probably that's where we're headed again, is into a recession. And I think the banks know this and they're tightening up. We had never missed a payment. We had great credit scores. We didn't carry excessive balances, but exactly the same thing down to our limit. Or they did it down to what we owed at that time. They cut me straight down to what, so it looked like I maxed out my credit card, right? And it was painful. I don't know. You don't know, we don't know. But my assumption based on the history that I've lived is that that's what's happening walking into this world that we're walking into, because I think a recession is coming. And I think that they are tightening everything. Because that's just who they are.
Yeah.
And that's just
Well, you've got a lot of
preventative measures that they're taking.
You've got a lot. Our credit card debt is at its highest point in our country's history. People, you know, a lot of the easing from COVID money that flowed out freely, that money's been spent, and that's what we're feeling. That's why I think that this economic correction that we're supposed to have had, you know, 6-8 months ago has taken this long to get to this point. But we know that credit will start to tighten up as those cards max out. So a lot of people they're still spending more than they're making, which is a common problem, right? And so that's what's happening across the board. So exposure for banks is open credit. So I believe what happened to us is that we were in the mortgage business on our application, and I think that they knew the mortgage. I think they literally
writing on the wall, right?
Yeah, it was a bad time for them.
Those guys are about to be screwed.
It happened across our industry where we had multiple other people.
Equity lines, people's home equity lines were cut down to what they owed, you know, because we used them for kind of emergency funds just to have an option.
So I know we're almost done here, but I have another question, because we're going through this right now. My wife and I are getting ready to sell one house and buy another, and I'm speaking with a mortgage. Right. I have a real estate agent who has a 20-year relationship with a lender. So she said, give him a call, talk to him. And yeah, I got you. And he said that your FICO score isn't what they use to determine credit eligibility for a home loan. And I thought, what kind of crap is that? There's an unknown fiduciary group that keeps track of different scores that only people in the industry have access to, and consumers can't see those numbers. So I have no idea of knowing what my actual ability to get a mortgage loan is, because my FICO score means nothing to them. Can you address that?
So I can address it in generalities, and this is how it works, right? When mortgage people pull your credit, we pull what's called a tri-merge, which is all three bureaus, and we use the middle score. And if there are two borrowers, it's the lowest middle score between both borrowers to determine, you know, what your credit score is. However, the credit pull that we pull is different than what you see on Credit Karma, and it's different than some of the other places. And I don't remember the names of them, but they're do you remember the names of the credit scoring models or whatever?
Oh, there's
I can't remember whatever Credit Karma.
Tell me what the name of it was, but I closed that tab. I'm like,
yeah, whatever Credit Karma uses is different than what a mortgage company uses. So it is usually Credit Karma is going to be higher than your mortgage credit pull. Your car credit pulls are different too.
See, that's the thing
Well,
that
see,
a lot of people don't realize.
I go straight to the Equifax, Experian, TransUnion, and he said, no, those aren't. We don't use those at all. And
they wait.
They use Equifax, TransUnion, Experian. I just don't know that the ones that you pull directly from the bureaus are the same, because usually I don't want my borrowers to pull their credit before we do, right? So I can see the difference in Credit Karma, because it's not a credit pull, but I can't see the difference unless they'd actually pulled a tri-merge somewhere.
Yeah, credit, and I know this from dealing with the car industry and good friends that are in the car industry on the backside of the credit there. You have a car credit score on Equifax and TransUnion that's weighted more heavily based on your previous payment of car history. You have a mortgage. It's a weighting is what it is. It's Equifax, TransUnion, Experian. They all have when we pull that tri-merge on the mortgage side, it's weighted heavily. It gives your credence more to your mortgage history and those kind of things on that weighting process. So that's why it seems vague and ambiguous. And no, there's no way unless you go to a mortgage broker or to a mortgage banker and have them pull that mortgage score for you to know it.
But it does, and that's the truth. But learning Credit Karma and watching it and paying attention to it does give you the good lessons and learning that you need to have, so that when you do have that pulled, you don't have some, medical bill that you had no idea was even out there that's now a collection on your credit report. Because I see that quite a bit, right? That's tanking your scores, things like that. So it is a good lesson, but no, you're right there. It is not exactly the same. And there's no way to predict it other than managing
Save
it
the
and doing
money.
your
Just
best.
keep putting it in your mattress and walk in to buy the house with cash.
As long as you
I
got
don't even think
enough
they'd
cash.
sell it to
'Cause
you.
if not, they want to know where that cash came from. And if you
Right.
source it, you're in trouble too, right? So the mortgage world's a whole fun game for sure.
You guys have a job that I don't wish on anybody. It is absolutely madness out in the financial world. And I work with financial investment advisors and helping them market their businesses. And oh my gosh, the crap they have to go through with FINRA and the SEC and all that. It's just, it's almost, hopefully it'll start easing up a little bit. But right now, wow, you can't even tell the people what you do without,
especially online.
Being under a microscope, right? So,
yeah.
All right, we talked over.
All right, guys.
Wrap this thing up.
Thank you.
Yeah, good conversation.
Before we wrap this thing up, one thing I want you guys to know and to remember is that it is tax return season. A lot of you are getting tax refunds back. A lot of you are planning on paying off credit cards with them. Some of you are planning on going to, a European vacation or whatever. But if you are planning to use those for credit cards, before you just throw everything into your credit card, look at your emergency fund too, because it is so important to have a stash of money sitting in a separate account that you can access as an emergency. So your credit cards don't just become that fallback emergency fund every single time. So maybe it makes sense to split it and put half of your tax return on your credit cards and half of it in savings account, something like that. But be smart with that money, because you get it once a year and it's time. And it could really help you dig out of that hole if you're in a hole.
Yep. So many more things we could talk about on this topic. We'll keep coming back to it periodically. And if we find things about the algorithm and how to make sense of it, we'll certainly bring those to you. So, all right, guys. Well, as we go out into our day, remember, love, laugh out loud, stress less, eat mostly plant-based, eat things that are good for you, give, sleep, get your rest, move, and then finally take a pause, check yourself before you make a reaction that you will regret. So, all right, guys. See you tomorrow, same time, same place on the Daily Huddle.
Bye.
Okay,
Call me Robin.
All right. Take care.
Excellent job. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, CC.